What's going on, everyone? I just want to discuss the most controversial chapter, probably, of One Piece. It came out a few weeks ago, but I just want to put in my 2 cents because I have a lot to say about this chapter. And the chapter I'm talking about is, 890, Big Mom on the ship. So a lot happens this chapter, and in fact, a lot of controversial stuff happens this chapter. A lot of people are not a fan of this chapter, while others love this chapter. And honestly, I can see both sides. So personally, I think this chapter sort of exemplifies this entire arc for a lot of people, right? A lot of things are happening that require some suspension of disbelief, and some people just can't afford that. And I think there's two ways we can really look at this chapter that kind of breaks it down properly for me, and that is in a micro scale and in a macro scale. And what I mean by that is, so first of all, on a micro scale, you want to look at incident after incident, one by one, and whether it all makes sense or not. And personally speaking, you could probably find a pretty decent justification for everything that happens in this chapter, right? Right from the get-go, Big Mom is on the ship, and one thing I'll admit is that I know a lot of people complain about sort of a false sense of danger when it comes to this arc, and I can totally see where they're coming from. There's been so many chapters that end on Big Mom looming over the ship, right? And at first it's dangerous and we feel the threat, but after the second and third and fourth time, it starts to wear off. But I gotta say, when Big Mom was on the ship and she was tearing apart the Sunny, like pulling up the cabin with one hand looking for the cake, I legitimately felt the threat. I don't know if that was just me, but like I felt the fear that must have like stricken everyone on that ship. It was crazy. Yeah, I thought that was very good. That was a very good setup, and and I think most people would agree that that was some great stuff. With Big Mom just tearing up the Sunny like so casually, right? And so that's not where the problem starts to arise. It happens right after that. The first thing is Big Mom's cognac, which strikes Jinbei, and he uses his shark skin, his armament hockey, to block that attack. And so this is the first case. And when we look at this again at a micro scale, this is the first thing that we have to deal with, and that is Jinbei momentarily blocking Big Mom's attack. Now, an explanation for this is a pretty simple one, and that is that Big Mom is clearly physically weaker. Her physical strength has decreased, though it seems her speed has increased. But her physical strength and her physical endurance, I guess you would say, have both decreased in this starved state, right? And so because of that, it seems Jinbei was able to block the attack for a bit, and then he got sent flying. Now, a lot of people are also saying that Jinbei might have lost an arm in this section, which could be true. Honestly, like I haven't found a single panel that where it made me go like, nope, there's his arm. Those theories are wrong. So that could be very much true, but from a micro scale, again, you can't explain how Jinbei was able to block Big Mom's attack. Should he have been able to? Well, I mean, let's put it into context. I mean, Jinbei, I know, I know that there's this perception that the Straw Hats aren't strong enough to deal with a Yonko yet, and they aren't, not even close. But Jinbei, he you got to remember he was there at Marineford, and he was taking hits from Akainu, right? Who was able to damage a Yonko, right? So his Akainu's attacks are probably on par with at least the most basic Yonko attacks, right? A Yonko could probably produce a much stronger attack than Akainu could ever produce, but a Yonko's most basic attack is probably just as strong as an attack that Akainu could produce. Whether that's his strongest attack or not, that's a different discussion, right? So and Jinbei was able to take that pre-time skip. So right now, a much more physically weaker Big Mom attacking uh, Jinbei, him blocking it momentarily is somewhat believable. Again, in that micro scale, we continue from this, and the next situation is Big Mom's hand being blocked by Chopper's guard point. Now, I guess you could say there that Big Mom wasn't really attacking anybody. He was going to go grab Nami, and you could even see that there's a huge dent, obviously, at Chopper's guard point. Chopper's not just tanking it; he's taking the force of it. but it isn't an attack, so you could probably explain it like that. And then you have Jinbei who comes back with his Vegamon drill attack, right from the water. And now there's two problems here that we have to address on a micro scale. First is Big Mom, well, not dodging the attack, and the second is Big Mom, getting blown back by the attack. Now, the dodging one, I don't think you can really explain that well. I feel like Big Mom should have been able to dodge that attack, um, because she's supposed to be faster in this situation. Some people argue that, oh, Jinbei threw a water current at her and that distracted her, but that's not true because even though she got hit with a water current, immediately she clearly sees Jinbei coming. She even says, if you want me to get off, then give me the cake right to Jinbei. So she knows Jinbei is coming. What I think happened here is that Big Mom has been in this frenzy for what, 8 hours. I don't think she's ever been in a frenzy like this for so long. Uh, and because of that, she herself does not know her physical extent in this form, right? She doesn't know how much weaker she's gotten. She thinks she can take this attack because she thinks that she's physically capable enough in this state to take this attack, but she's not, right? And I think that's how you can explain why she didn't dodge it. She just didn't think she would be blown back by it, and the fact that she got blown back by it, I guess you could explain that by by the nature of the fisherman karate techniques, how they work. They work by, they use the victim's water against them, right? And Big Mom is a pretty big person, right? So she has a lot of water for Jinbei to use, and you can see that in when Jinbei makes his contact. There's a lot of those water waves going around Big Mom's belly, right? So that's probably what's amplifying Jinbei's attack, and also he just came from the ocean, so he's probably wet himself, and so he has a lot of water to work with in that scenario. No, I mean, in just general, uh, Jinbei has a huge advantage in this situation because he's surrounded by water, and that's where he's best at against the devil fruit user, to no less, right? So that's the second thing in that situation of Big Mom being blown back by Jinbei. And again, that's a pretty good explanation. The dodging explanation is a little bit weaker in my opinion, but the explanation for how Jinbei was able to blow back Big Mom is, I think, pretty sound. Um, I know a lot of people uh, are questioning this sort of state that Big Mom is in general. Why is Big Mom in this crazy state where she's so much physically weaker? This seems to be such a ridiculous weakness for Yonka to have, and I would agree with that to a certain extent, to be honest. But you know what? I'll discuss that once I get into the macro analysis of this chapter. Let's stick with the micro analysis for now. So the next scenario that we should analyze is the infamous Brooke speed blitzing Big Mom scene. All right. Well, first of all, before that, Brooke resists electricity for some reason. I just don't know why. I have no explanation for that. I guess in the One Piece world, electricity only hurts you if you have skin and flesh. I guess if somebody gets struck by lightning and they're just bone, it probably doesn't do much damage to your bone. I guess. I mean, most of the damage would be the burns to your flesh. So you could probably explain it that way, but then you could also argue, well, it should still do some damage because of the heat of lightning. But that's whatever, right? Honestly, that's a pretty small thing. The major issue is Brooke seemingly speed blitzing Big Mom. Now, I have heard a few YouTubers talk about this. I think the one that I've watched and I'm a huge fan of is Zoro Fanboy, and he seems to really dislike this scene because he believes that Brooke should not be able to speed blitz Big Mom. I think King of Lightning also thinks of something along those lines. However, I really don't think Brooke speed blitzed Big Mom in this scene. I really don't. That's not what happened. That's not what I'm seeing. Because I'll tell you why. Because first of all, Big Mom comments. First of all, Big Mom is setting up an attack, so she's already in the middle of doing an action. So for her to want to block or dodge another attack, she would have to stop the action that she's doing, right? She's readying an attack with her sword, with Napoleon, to slice the ship. and that's when Brooke decides to attack Big Mom. And again, if she wants to block or dodge Brooke's attack, she's gonna have to stop, the motion of the attack she's already doing, right? Secondly, people are saying that it's because Brooke wants to see her panties, and that somehow distracts her. That is not. That's a horrible explanation. Honestly, like, that's not what happened. I don't believe that's what happened at all. In fact, I think there's a very good explanation for what happened here. But the fact that people think that's an explanation and that that's a viable explanation kind of troubles me, because that is, if that was the actual explanation, I would honestly be angry, because that's a horrible, horrible joke of an explanation. But luckily, I don't think that is. That's not what happened. What happens here is Brooke readies the attack. Remember, Brooke already fought Big Mom. Big Mom knows what Brooke can do. Brooke is not an unknown enemy to Big Mom. In fact, she says it right here, right before Brooke attacks. She says, "Are you trying to fight me, Soul King? Remember, your sword couldn't even put a scratch on me." So Brooke has already attacked Big Mom before. Big Mom knows exactly what's going to happen, and she knows that Brooke cannot do damage to her. This is a classic scenario where a character that is ridiculously powerful is facing against a character that is significantly less powerful than that character. And when that weaker character attacks the stronger character just lets the weaker character attack them, because they know that there's no damage that the weaker character can inflict on them. That's what's happening here. In fact, if you watch the anime, I think the anime just recently got to where Brooke is fighting Big Mom in the treasure room, right? And it's an attack. This is not in the manga, but the anime adds a little extra scenes to this fight. And there's a scene where Brooke does this flying attack with his sword, and Big Mom does nothing. She does not block. She does not dodge. She just lets Brooke attack him with this piercing attack. And what happens? Nothing happens, right? Brooke's sword bounces off of Big Mom without leaving a single scratch. That's exactly what's happening here. Big Mom knows Brooke cannot damage her in the slightest, right? And so she's letting Brooke attack her because, well, there's no reason for her to do anything. First of all, she's already in a motion of an attack, so there's no reason for her to block or dodge the attack when Brooke cannot scratch her one bit. And she says this, right? And another clear indication that Brooke did not speed blitz Big Mom is that speed blitzing, by definition, means to move at a speed that is not recognizable or noticeable by another character, and they cannot react to it, right? That's what speed blitz. If the other character reacts to your speed blitz, you have not speed blitzed him, right? That's a pretty good definition, I would say. And Big Mom, after Brooke attacks Big Mom immediately, literally the next panel, looks behind her, looks at Brooke. She knows exactly where Brooke is. She was able to follow Brooke with her eyes, meaning Brooke did not speed blitz them. She has a surprised look on her face, but I think that's because at that moment, Big Mom realized what Brooke was actually doing. Right? Big Mom, she's not the most intelligent person, and plus her mind is not in the right place right now, so she's not gonna immediately remember like, oh yeah, Brooke can damage, my homies, so maybe instead of attacking me, Brooke is actually trying to attack Zeus. She did not realize that immediately, but after the attack was already done, after Big Mom was able to keep up with the attack and not be speed blitzed by it, she probably realized like, oh shit, like he's not going for me, and by then it was too late. Brooke had already attacked, and he split Zeus in half. So I think that is my explanation, and I hope somebody sends this to Zoro fanboy and King of Lightning, because I really want them to like hear this explanation, because I feel like that's a pretty good explanation for what happened there. Brooke, again, did not at all speed blitz Big Mom. That's not what happened. Now, the next scene that we can analyze in a micro scale is literally the next scene with Nami discharging Zeus onto Big Mom. I mean, this is not anything new, so if you didn't like this the first time it happened in the Seducing Woods, you won't like it again. Like, it's that simple. It's as simple as that. So really, it comes down to, well, did it make sense the first time? If it made sense the first time, it makes sense this time. Like, it really does. That's really what it comes down to. And in my opinion, um, I think it brings Big Mom's control over the homies into questions at worst. At worst, that's all it does, right? I think it makes sense for Nami to be able to control a literal cloud, right? That's what she specializes in, right? And it's not like Zeus is not a cloud. He's just some sort of creature that Big Mom created. No, Big Mom literally took a cloud and put life into it. That's literally what it is. So Zeus is still a cloud, and so therefore Nami could still manipulate him. That makes sense in my opinion. But it does bring into question that I guess Big Mom's devil fruit has limits in the sense that it can't she can't telepathically control the very atoms of the things she gives life to, right? And in a way, I guess that would be ridiculously overpowered. And because if she could, then she could just give life to like the Sunny right now, and then and then telepathically bend the Sunny around the Straw Hats, and collapse, and it just trap them in the Sunny's wood and whatnot. Like that would be ridiculously powerful. But it doesn't sit right with readers because you're already giving limitations to a character that you kind of don't want to put limitations on, right? And I think this is a general issue with the way Big Mom's been portrayed in this arc. And again, I will get into that during the macro analysis, right? So the micro analysis, uh, Zeus being discharged by Nami, in my opinion, makes sense because that is what Nami's abilities pertain to. The damage that it causes Big Mom makes sense because it's not Nami directly damaging Big Mom. It is quite literally Big Mom damaging herself, right? It's like when a Pokemon hits itself in confusion. It's kind of like that, right? It's Big Mom's own power being used against herself. And again, her physical durability in this state is clearly lacking, or it's much less than what you'd expect because of her frenzy, right? So yeah, so that's pretty much the last thing that happens in that arc. Oh, well, okay. Nami also acquires Zeus, which is like I don't know. I personally don't like that. Like I just don't like the way Zeus is being used. But that I think that kind of comes down to opinion, right? Like, do you like the fact that this is being Zeus is being like a pet to Nami, or do you not like? I personally don't like it. So I think there's just no logic behind that. You just gotta that's just an opinion thing, right? Yeah, I mean there is logic behind that. It makes sense because Zeus has discharged all of his electricity, so he becomes a little cloud. And again, Big Mom's power doesn't let her directly like mind control things. And she just can give life to them, and they have their own will and their own you know autonomous what's the word for it agency, right? So it makes sense because they're basically like their own character, so they can be manipulated. They can be uh they're their own living thing, so it makes sense in that way. But like I just don't like the fact that it's being used this way. But that's a different issue. So and then finally, yeah, that's pretty much the last minor thing that happens, or um last micro thing that happens, I should say. And so yeah, if you go one by one, I think you could justify all of them with some pretty decent explanations, right? But the problems come from when you analyze this chapter on a macro scale, and I will get into that in the second video. So I will see you guys soon.